Drop the relic, or I swear I'll shoot. Kai's voice trembles with adrenaline, finger twitching on the trigger of his battered plasma pistol. He's panting, crouched behind a half-collapsed metal archway that once formed part of an ancient temple's entrance. All around him, dust and debris swirl in the stale air of this derelict outpost on a dead moon. His heart hammers as he peers at the figure in front of him, pale, unmoving, statue-like. He found it a moment ago, hidden in the gloom, half buried among the rubble. When he'd shone his flashlight on the shape, he'd thought it was an artifact carved in an alien's likeness. But then the figure's eyes flicked open, luminous and unearthly. Now it's definitely not a statue. It's alive, and it's turning its head toward him. I do not need your weapon, the alien girl says, her voice lilting in a way that sends a shiver through his core. She stands so still that for a moment he wonders if she's just another projection of this moon's weird illusions. He inches closer, trying to see if there's some hidden threat in her hands, but her arms remain at her sides, elongated fingers splayed slightly. Her skin is pale, almost translucent, and her features are inhumanly refined, a long neck, ears that curve gracefully, and eyes that reflect his flashlight beam in shimmering violet. He can't believe what he's seeing. She's too still, too perfect, like some masterpiece he stumbled upon. His instincts scream that this is trouble. Who are you? He growls, keeping the pistol leveled at her. Dust floats between them in slow motion. Her gaze flickers with an odd curiosity, as though she's never seen a human before. Or maybe she has, but not up close. He curses under his breath, wanting to back away. Yet something in her posture compels him forward. He's searching for anything that might confirm she's an immediate threat, any sign of a weapon, a hidden device, or a predatory stance. She tilts her head. You speak. The words are harsh, but I understand them. Her tone is even, measured. Then she does something that makes his blood turn to ice. She winks at him. Just one slow, deliberate blink of her left eye. He almost pulls the trigger right there. But in that same instant, she whispers, Mate confirmed. Her words hang in the dusty air, impossible to ignore. A wave of heat prickles up his spine. What did you just say? He demands. The tension in his voice cracks. He's not sure if he misheard. Mate? Confirmed? He glances behind him, scanning for any sign of an ambush. Is this some kind of alien trap? Or is she alone? She steps forward, and the light reveals more of her form. Her collarbones shimmer with faint luminescence, and her ears flare slightly as if tasting the air. She's not wearing any armor he can recognize, just a sleek, form-fitting garment that melds with her pale skin. She's tall, graceful, but definitely no statue. And that phrase she whispered, he can't get it out of his head. I said mate confirmed, she repeats, as if it's the most natural declaration in the universe. Your touch awakened me. My body recognizes your presence as a catalyst. We are bound. Her voice thrums with a resonance that makes his chest tighten. He can't decide if he's terrified or something else. Something that leaves his fingertips tingling. He sucks in a breath, mind reeling. He wants to shout that she's insane, that there's no way in hell he's her mate, but the words lodge in his throat. Listen, he manages, voice low. I don't know who or what you are, but I'm nobody's mate. I'm just a scavenger who thought he found a statue. He risks a glance at the path behind him, the route he came from. There's a half-collapsed corridor that might lead back to his shuttle if he can slip past her. Now step aside or I'll... You will not harm me. She interrupts, her eyes narrowing. There's no malice in her tone, but there's a confidence that unsettles him. You cannot! Your hand is shaking. He looks down at his pistol. Damn it, she's right. His aim is wavering. She's reading his fear like an open book. He doesn't know how to respond, so he does what he's always done, scowls and raises his weapon higher. I've shot bigger things than you, lady. A faint smile curves her lips. Have you? She moves another step closer. His instincts scream at him to back away, but he stands his ground, half out of shock. Your body is giving off signals, stress, excitement, confusion. All typical of a newly bonded pair in my culture. Bonded pair? He echoes. You're out of your mind. His heart feels like it's about to punch a hole through his ribcage. He never believed in any sort of cosmic fate, least of all with an alien he found in a dusty ruin. Yet something about the way her eyes glow, the softness of her voice, and the heat radiating from her body, it draws him in against his better judgment. She lifts a delicate hand and gestures toward the worn stone dais behind her. I was placed here in stasis by my kin. They believed no human would ever find me. But you did. And you touched me. A small tremor runs through her as she says this, as though the memory itself is electric. In my species, physical contact during stasis is potent. It imprints a mating bond if the other's physiology resonates. He tries to scoff, but the sound catches in his throat. So what? I brush against you, and suddenly we're engaged. That's insane. The dust-choked corridor around them feels like it's closing in. He wants to escape, but his legs remain locked in place. Something primal about her presence tethers him here. It's not just her bizarre beauty. There's a sense of gravity, like she's the eye of a storm, pulling him in. Insane to you, perhaps, she says, voice husky with an undercurrent of excitement or urgency. For me, it is biology. I have recognized you, and now my body and mind adjust to that recognition. Her ears twitch, and he notices the faint flush creeping along her throat. I can sense you are frightened. I do not wish to cause alarm. He rubs a hand across his stubbled jaw, trying to steady himself. Great job not causing alarm. His sarcasm is a shield, but he can't deny the spark that flared inside him the moment she winked. He's on the edge, half wanting to run, half wanting to see if she's telling the truth. This can't be real, can it? She steps even closer, close enough that he can see the subtle patterns in her skin, the shifting color in her eyes that glows like a distant star. What is your name? She asks softly. Kai, he mutters. He regrets giving it so easily, but her voice seems to bypass his defenses. Who are you? Thalia. She pronounces it with a gentle click in the back of her throat. I was chosen to guard these ruins. My people believed humans might desecrate them. But they did not expect. Her gaze flickers to his trembling pistol hand, then back to his eyes. They did not expect a direct bond. This changes everything. He tries to laugh. The sound is hollow. Lady, I don't even know your species, your planet, or your customs. I'm no archaeologist. I'm a scavenger, looking for valuable tech. This place looked deserted. I saw you and thought you were a statue worth a fortune. I was about to lift you out of here, sell you to the highest bidder. He feels a twist of guilt saying it out loud, but it's the truth. He's never pretended to be some gallant hero. Her eyes flash in what might be anger or hurt. Sell me? She clenches her jaw, and he notices the muscles in her neck tense. You intended to trade my body as if I were an object? He tries to explain himself. I didn't know you were alive! But the defensive ring in his voice sounds weak, even to him. He imagines how monstrous that must sound from her perspective. She was in stasis, and he was about to haul her off like a priceless artifact. She lowers her gaze for a moment, then meets his eyes again. We are off to a poor beginning, Kai. Yet the bond stands. My biology does not lie. I recognized your essence the moment you touched me. He tightens his grip on the pistol, even though some part of him knows he won't shoot. I can't be your mate, he says, forcing the words through clenched teeth. That's not how things work for us humans. We don't just imprint on someone with a single touch. Her ears flick back in a gesture of frustration. Your ways may differ, but I cannot undo what has been done. She takes a breath, shoulders rising and falling in a slow, deliberate motion. You speak of your kind's customs, yet you do not hesitate to scavenge or destroy what you do not understand. Hey, he snaps, stung by the accusation. I'm not a monster. I just... A distant rumble interrupts him. The entire structure trembles, sending a spray of dust from the cracked ceiling. He swears under his breath, glancing upward. Something is destabilizing this place. Maybe his shuttle's landing caused structural damage, or perhaps the centuries have finally caught up with these ruins. He needs to move before the whole temple collapses. But the alien girl, Thalia, is standing in his way. "Look," he says. "We have to get out of here before the roof caves in. I'm not trying to bond with you, but I'm also not going to let you get crushed if I can help it. So either step aside, or come with me. But decide fast." Her eyes widen slightly, and he sees her ears flatten in alarm at the next rumble. She hesitates, then gives a single, decisive nod. "I will come with you. The bond compels me to remain close." "Fine," he mutters, heart pounding. He lowers his pistol but keeps it in hand. "But keep your distance. And don't say that word again." She raises an eyebrow. "Which word?" He clenches his jaw. "Mate." She gives him a curious look, as though tasting the shape of the word in her mind, then shrugs. "Very well. But it remains the truth." He curses under his breath and motions for her to follow him through the corridor. The temple groans like a dying beast, dust billowing around them. He wonders if he's just made the biggest mistake of his life by letting her come along. But something about her presence tugs at him, a bizarre sense of connection he can't explain. They scramble over broken stones and twisted metal beams. He leads the way, flashlight bobbing in the darkness. The only sound besides their labored breathing is the distant shifting of rubble. He keeps sneaking glances back at her, as if to confirm she's real. She moves with eerie grace, her eyes scanning every corner, her ears twitching at the slightest echo. He notices how she sometimes glances at his back, as if measuring him. The corridor opens into a wide chamber with a partially collapsed roof. A sliver of the moon's pale sky is visible through the gap. Dust motes swirl in the faint light. He spots his shuttle's silhouette in the distance, perched precariously on a ledge. It's a beat-up craft, but it's the only way off this rock. He waves for Thalia to hurry. She does, stepping lightly over the debris. Another tremor rattles the ground, and a chunk of stone crashes down behind them. She flinches at the thunderous impact. He curses again, feeling the adrenaline spike. They're running out of time. "Through there," he calls, pointing at a battered archway that leads outside. He can see the flicker of his shuttle's emergency lights. If they can just make it out, they'll be safe, relatively speaking. She nods and picks up her pace, coming dangerously close to him. He feels the heat emanating from her body, the subtle scent that's both floral and sharp, stirring something primal in his gut. He tries to ignore it, tries to focus on the immediate danger, but his mind keeps returning to that moment she winked and whispered. "Mate confirmed." It feels like a brand on his psyche, burning hot. They duck beneath a sagging beam, then spill out into the open air. The landscape beyond is barren, littered with broken columns and scattered relics from a civilization lost to time. The sky is a swirling mass of gray, tinged with a pale sun that offers little warmth. His shuttle is a short sprint away. He breaks into a run, beckoning her to follow. "Inside," he orders, punching the hatch release on the shuttle's exterior. The door hisses open, and he practically shoves her in before clambering after her. Once they're in, he slams the door shut and presses a sequence of buttons to seal the cabin. His breath comes in ragged gasps. He can still feel the temple shaking behind them. Thalia stands in the cramped interior, gazing around with wide, curious eyes. "You dwell in this metal creature?" He sinks into the pilot's seat, tapping at the controls to fire up the engines. "It's a ship. And yeah, it's my home away from home." The console sputters, lights flickering. He smacks it with the flat of his hand, cursing under his breath. "Come on, don't fail me now." She leans over his shoulder, peering at the readouts. Her proximity makes him tense, but he doesn't push her away. He's aware of every subtle shift of her body, every breath. "Your vessel is damaged," she observes quietly. "It may not hold together if you attempt immediate flight." He knows she might be right. He'd landed in a hurry, and the crater's surface was unstable. But staying here isn't an option. "I'll get us into orbit, patch her up as best I can, and then figure out what the hell to do next." He hits the ignition switch. The engines roar to life, sputter, then roar again. The floor vibrates beneath them. She braces herself against the back of the pilot's seat. He can feel her gaze burning into him. I will assist if you allow it. My knowledge of technology may differ from yours, but I can sense certain energy flows. He barks a short laugh. Right. Sure. Alien wizardry. Why not? The sarcasm in his tone is thick, but part of him wonders if she might actually be able to help. He doesn't have time to question it. The temple is on the verge of collapse, and the entire region could crumble any second. Strap in, he mutters, though he doubts she knows what that means. She frowns, looking around. Strap in? He reaches back, grabs the spare harness, and shoves it into her hands. Wrap it around yourself and clip it there. Otherwise, you'll be thrown around when we lift off. She studies the harness, then does her best to follow his instructions. He doesn't have time to guide her carefully. The ship lurches as he engages the thrusters. Dust and debris swirl outside the viewport, and the entire craft groans. Slowly, they rise, the skids scraping across broken stone. He keeps one hand on the throttle, the other dancing over the stabilizer controls. The shuttle wobbles precariously. A deep, gut-wrenching rumble echoes from below, and the ground collapses where the temple once stood. He guns the engines, forcing the shuttle higher. They clear the ledge just as the entire structure caves in on itself, sending up a massive cloud of debris. The shuttle is pelted with rocks and fragments of ancient metal. Warnings flash across the console, but he pushes the craft onward, up and away from the chaos. In a few heart-stopping moments, they're airborne, rising through the thin atmosphere of this dead moon. He exhales in relief when the sensors indicate they've cleared the immediate danger. But that relief is short-lived as the cockpit alarm starts shrieking. Something's wrong with the engine coolant. He fights to keep the shuttle stable, cursing under his breath. Thalia, still strapped in behind him, glances at the console. Your machine is overheating. Yeah, thanks for the update, he growls. He tries to reroute power, but the alarm continues to blare. We might have to land again soon, or we'll burn out the thrusters. He can't believe this is happening. The last thing he wants is to crash on some other chunk of rock in this system. She unclips herself and carefully inches to a side panel, ignoring the lurching motion of the shuttle. He starts to protest, but she places a hand over the panel's surface, her fingers splayed as though feeling for something. Her eyes flutter shut, and he swears he sees a faint glow around her fingertips. The alarm flickers once, then goes silent. The console readings stabilize. What did you do? He demands, half in awe, half suspicious. She looks back at him, her expression unreadable. I told you, I can sense certain energy flows. Your technology is foreign to me, but I recognize the imbalance. I harmonized it. He has no idea what that means, but the alarm is off, and the thrusters are no longer spitting error messages. He's too stunned to argue. Fine, he says gruffly, pulling the ship into a steadier ascent. That buys us a little time. But we can't push it too hard. She braces herself against the bulkhead, eyes flicking over the interior of the shuttle. Where do we go now? He punches in some coordinates for a safer orbit. I've got a small outpost on the far side of the planet's ring system. We can dock there, maybe fix this heat properly. Then I'll figure out what to do about you. He glances over his shoulder, heart still hammering. She's staring at him with those luminous eyes, and he can't forget her words. Mate confirmed. It's as if they echo in his head, refusing to let him rest. He returns his focus to the controls, wrestling the shuttle into a stable flight path. Once they're in a low orbit, the turbulence eases, and the cabin becomes still except for the hum of the engines. He finally lets himself breathe, wiping sweat from his brow. He can feel her presence behind him like a warm pulse, and he hates how aware he is of every movement she makes. When she speaks, her voice is softer. You risked your life to save me. Perhaps this is a sign our bond is not so ill-fated after all. He exhales a dry laugh. I didn't do it for you, princess. I did it because I don't like watching living beings get crushed by falling rocks. And because maybe you're worth a lot of credits on the black market. He knows it's a cruel thing to say, but he can't help himself. Better to keep some distance. Yet the words taste bitter on his tongue. She doesn't react with anger. Instead, she looks almost sad. Then we remain in conflict, even though my people believe such bonds are sacred. He scowls. We're not in conflict, exactly. We just want different things. You want to fulfill some weird alien mating ritual, and I just want to get paid, or at least survive. That's not a recipe for happily ever after, if you catch my drift. Her ears droop slightly. I do not fully understand your human idioms, but I sense your hostility. Very well. I will not force anything upon you. But the bond has been triggered. The consequences may be beyond our control. He's about to retort when a flicker on the sensors catches his eye. A small blinking dot at the edge of the screen. He frowns, adjusting the scanner range. We've got company, he mutters, tension knotting in his stomach. He doesn't know who or what it is, but out here, any unknown contact is a threat. He chances a glance back at Thalia. Strap in again. This might get bumpy. She silently does as he says, though her gaze never leaves his. He can practically feel the intensity of her stare burning a hole in his back. Mate confirmed. He shakes his head, as if to clear the words from his mind, and banks the shuttle toward the outpost. The blinking dot shifts, accelerating to intercept. Whoever they are, they're moving fast. He grips the controls. Guess we're not getting a quiet escape, he mutters. Then, raising his voice so Thalia can hear, he says, Hold on tight. Looks like we've got trouble. Her voice is steady, almost calm. I am not afraid. We face it together, yes? He hesitates. Something in her words resonates with a part of him he thought was long dead. Don't read too much into that, he grumbles, but the flutter in his chest betrays him. He guns the engines, pushing the shuttle harder, ignoring the possibility of more damage. If there's going to be a fight, he wants to be on better ground than drifting in open space. Thalia closes her eyes, and he can't help noticing the faint shimmer along her collarbones. Is it fear? Excitement? Or something else entirely? He forces his attention back to the console. Right now, he's got bigger problems than an alien girl who thinks he's her mate. But as he angles the ship toward the outpost, he can't shake the feeling that this is only the beginning of a chaos he never asked for, and that the bond she claims might be more real than he's willing to admit. Kai keeps a white-knuckle grip on the controls, scanning the readouts as the unidentified craft closes in behind them. The outpost is still a few thousand kilometers away, orbiting the ring planet below. Thalia's presence feels like a live wire in the cramped cockpit, an electric current that crackles between them. He tries to ignore it. Survival first, he tells himself. Whatever bizarre connection she claims they share, he can figure that out later, if they live that long. The contact behind them pings the sensors again, this time with a targeted scan. Kai curses under his breath. They're scanning us. Probably sizing us up. He quickly checks the shuttle's meager weapons array. A single forward blaster, half operational, and a missile system that's been offline for months. Not exactly a formidable defense. Thalia's gaze sweeps over the cockpit, her ears twitching in concentration. If they are your enemies, we must prepare. Yeah, no kidding. He taps a few commands, rerouting power to the forward shield. It's minimal, but it might buy them a few seconds in a fight. Hope you're not squeamish, because this could get ugly. I have seen ugliness before, she says quietly. Though not from humans. I have only heard stories of your kind. He smirks grimly. Well, you're about to see it firsthand. Another alarm chirps. The pursuer is closing the distance. He's out of time. Hang on. He throws the shuttle into a steep dive, angling around the planet's curvature to use its magnetic field as partial cover. The hull rattles, the engines whining in protest. Thalia grips the seat, knuckles whitening. She might claim she's not afraid, but Kai can sense her tension. He pushes the shuttle to its limit, weaving between chunks of ice and rock that orbit the planet in a glittering ring. The scanner shows the pursuer following, matching every maneuver. A sudden bolt of energy streaks past them, illuminating the cockpit with a blinding flash. Thalia gasps. Kai curses, jinking the shuttle to the side. Another bolt slams into a nearby rock, sending shards spinning away. The unknown attacker is firing at them, and from the intensity of the blasts, it's a well-armed ship. One direct hit, and they're done. He grits his teeth, pushing the throttle further. The shuttle lurches dangerously, alarmed shrieking. The outpost is now visible on the horizon, a small ring-shaped station orbiting just outside the planet's rings. If he can reach it, maybe he can dock, or at least get behind its defense systems. Thalier's eyes narrow. You are risking too much. The strain on this vessel. Quiet, he snaps. I know what I'm doing. But does he? He's never outrun a fully armed interceptor in this junker before. Another energy blast rocks the shuttle, causing the cabin lights to flicker. He wrestles with the controls, heart pounding. Damn it, he mutters, checking the readouts. The shields are down to 30%. One more good hit, and they'll be venting atmosphere. We can fight back, Thalia says suddenly. Her voice has an edge of urgency. Let me see your weapon controls. He almost laughs. What good is that gonna do? Our forward blaster's a joke. We'll be lucky if it fires more than a few shots before overheating. Let me try, she insists, moving closer. She slides into the co-pilot seat, slender fingers dancing over the console. He's about to protest, but a near-miss explosion rattles the hull, and he decides he has nothing to lose. Fine, he growls. Don't blow us up. She closes her eyes, pressing her palm against the weapons panel. He sees that faint glow again, the same that stabilized the coolant system. A pulse of light travels across the readout. Suddenly, the forward blaster's status indicators surge from yellow to green, as if it's drawing power from somewhere else. He doesn't know how she's doing it, but the system hums to life. Now! She calls, her voice laced with intensity. I have channeled enough energy for a short burst. He grips the yoke, lines up the target behind them as best he can, and thumbs the firing switch. A searing beam lances out, slicing through the darkness. The sensors register a hit. The pursuing ship wobbles, its trajectory shifting slightly. But it's not enough to take them out. Again, Thalia urges, her eyes still closed, sweat beading on her brow. He squeezes the trigger, sending another bolt of energy blazing through space. This time, the pursuer banks hard, avoiding the shot. But it stops firing for a moment, perhaps caught off guard by their sudden retaliation. Kai seizes the opportunity, angling the shuttle downward toward the ring station. The station's silhouette grows larger by the second, a rotating cylinder with docking bays along its rim. He flips open a comm channel, hoping the station is still operational. This is Kai, pilot of the salvage shuttle Raptor's Claw. We're under attack and requesting emergency docking clearance. Do you read me? Static crackles, then a gruff voice replies. Copy, Raptor's Claw. You're cleared for Base 6. Hurry up, we see your tail. Thanks, Kai mutters, guiding the shuttle toward the station. Another volley from the attacker lights up the ring, but they manage to dodge. The station's defensive turrets swivel, spitting a few return shots that force the pursuer to break off temporarily. That's all the time Kai needs. He lines up with Base 6, thrusters screaming, and slams the shuttle into the docking clamp. Metal screeches, but they're in. The bay's blast doors slide shut behind them, sealing out the vacuum of space. He collapses back into his seat, panting. Thalia releases the weapons panel, her eyes fluttering open. She looks strained, but triumphant. We made it, she whispers. Kai powers down the engines, ignoring the cascade of error messages. Yeah, he says, voice rough. But don't celebrate yet. Whoever was after us might dock too, or they might blow this station to pieces. She unbuckles herself, standing shakily. He notices a faint tremor in her legs. I used more energy than I realized. My body is not adapted to your technology. He stands as well, brushing dust from his jacket. Well, thanks for the assist. I guess that bond of yours is good for something. The moment the words leave his mouth, he regrets them. He sounds ungrateful, and the flicker of hurt in her eyes stings more than he wants to admit. Before she can respond, the docking bay's external door hisses open, and a trio of station guards stride in, weapons raised. "Hands where we can see them!" barks the lead guard, a stocky woman with a cybernetic arm. "Identify yourselves." Kai raises his hands, stepping forward. "Easy, easy. Name's Kai. We're under attack out there. We need repairs and maybe a place to lay low." He jerks his head toward Thalia. "She's with me. Don't shoot." The guards eye Thalia warily. Her alien appearance clearly makes them uneasy. She keeps her hands at her sides, back straight, chin lifted. "I mean you no harm," she says, voice calm. The lead guard studies her, then turns back to Kai. "You bring trouble, you pay extra docking fees," the guard growls. "You got the credits?" Kai sighs. Yeah. Just let us get out of this tin can before it falls apart." He glances at Thalia, who follows him down the shuttle's ramp. The station's interior is dingy and claustrophobic, smelling of stale air and burnt wiring. Typical of a low-tier orbital outpost. But it's safer than being out there with that hostile ship. The guards escort them into a narrow corridor lined with flickering lights. The lead guard motions them to a checkpoint scanner. "We need to verify you're not carrying contraband or pathogens. Step through." Kai goes first, arms raised, as the scanner sweeps him. It beeps and displays a readout of his standard human vitals. Then it's Thalia's turn. The machine flickers, spitting out garbled data. That's not normal," mutters one of the guards, eyeing the console. "You read as part amphibian? That can't be right." Thalia stands poised, letting them finish the scan. She remains silent, but Kai can see the tension in her posture. He steps closer. "She's from a race you've probably never seen. She's not dangerous. Can we hurry this up?" The guard shrugs, scribbling something on a data pad. "Fine. You're cleared, but don't cause any trouble. Head to the main concourse. If your attackers show up, we'll deal with them." Kai forces a thin smile. "Much appreciated." He guides Thalia through the checkpoint, exhaling in relief once they're past. The station is bustling with rough-looking travelers, merchants, and mercenaries. Neon signs flicker overhead, advertising everything from illegal implants to questionable entertainment. It's a hive of scum and opportunity, just how Kai likes it. They navigate through the crowd, ignoring curious stares at Thalia's appearance. She stays close to him, her gaze flicking warily around the concourse. He feels a strange urge to protect her from the gawkers, even though he's still not sure what to do with her. The memory of that whispered, "mate confirmed," still lingers in his mind, and he hates the unfamiliar pang it stirs. He finds an old mechanic's stall near the far wall, run by a wiry older man with a shaved head and a dozen tattoos on his neck. "Hey, Trip," Kai calls. "I've got a busted shuttle in Bay 6. Think you can patch it up?" Trip narrows his eyes. "Kai, you son of a gun. Always bringing me the worst scrap." "Sure, I can fix it, for the right price." Kai sighs. "Put it on my tab. I'll pay once I unload some cargo." He glances at Thalia, quickly amending. "I mean, we had a rough run-in. I need a few hours to figure things out." Trip snorts. Yeah? You always need a few hours." "Fine. But I'm not letting you skip out on me again." He waves a wrench in warning. "I'll lock down your ship if I have to." "Relax," Kai mutters. "I'm not going anywhere without that shuttle." He turns to Thalia. "Let's find somewhere quiet to talk." She nods, though her expression is guarded. They make their way to a dingy little cantina tucked in the corner of the concourse, its neon sign flickering so badly that half the letters are dead. Inside, the air is thick with smoke from a half-dozen questionable substances. Various patrons slump over tables, nursing drinks. A lone bartender polishes glasses behind the bar. Kai picks a booth in the back, away from prying eyes. Thalia slides in across from him, her eyes scanning the dim surroundings. "This place is unpleasant," she remarks softly. He shrugs. It's safe enough, and nobody here cares who you are. We can talk. He leans forward, lowering his voice. Look, I need to know what the hell is going on. You say we're bonded. Fine. That's your biology. But I can't just drop everything and become your whatever. I have a life, such as it is. And a lot of debts. She meets his gaze, her luminous eyes reflecting the flickering lights. I do not wish to disrupt your life. But the bond is real, Kai. My body recognizes you. It will cause complications if we remain in denial. He snorts. Complications. Great. Like what? She hesitates, her slender fingers tracing a pattern on the sticky table. My species, once a bond is formed, experiences a physical and mental pull toward the mate. If we remain close but do not complete the bond, it can lead to destabilization. Hallucinations, fever, even death. His stomach twists. You're telling me you'll die if we don't consummate this bond? She flushes slightly, the glow on her collarbones intensifying. In time, possibly. But it is not merely about consummation. It is about acceptance, alignment of minds and bodies. A mutual recognition. If one partner resists, the strain can be devastating. He leans back, running a hand through his hair. You've got to be kidding me. This is too much. He wants to reject it outright, but the earnestness in her eyes gives him pause. He remembers how she stabilized his shuttle systems, how she helped him fight off that attacker. She's not making this up for fun. So, what if I just leave you here? You can find another of your kind to help you, right? Her expression darkens, sadness creeping into her features. No. The bond is specific to the two who initiated it. Another cannot replace you. If you leave, I will eventually succumb to the bond's backlash. He curses under his breath. Guilt tangles with frustration in his chest. He never asked for this. He was just trying to salvage a statue. Now he's stuck with a living, breathing alien who claims she'll die if he doesn't fulfill some cosmic mating ritual. It's like a nightmare. Or maybe it's fate laughing in his face. She senses his turmoil, her voice softening. I do not wish to be a burden to you. If there is a way to break the bond, I will seek it. But such knowledge is forbidden among my people. They see the bond as sacred and irreversible. He exhales, massaging his temples. So either I bond with you, or you die. And maybe I suffer too, right? You said it could be dangerous for both parties if we stay close and don't complete it. She nods reluctantly. Yes. The bond is two-way. You may feel the effects in time. He closes his eyes, trying to gather his thoughts. All right. We'll figure something out. But first, I need to deal with whoever tried to shoot us out of the sky. That's probably connected to some old debts I have, or maybe they're after you. Either way, we're not safe here forever. She nods, relief flickering in her gaze. I will do whatever is needed. I do not wish to die, Kai. Her quiet plea cuts through his defenses. He sighs, rubbing his jaw. Yeah. Neither do I. Let's try to keep each other alive. Then we'll tackle this bond situation. A tense silence settles between them. The clink of glasses and low murmur of conversations fills the smoky air. Kai signals the bartender for a drink, something strong to steady his nerves. Thalia watches him carefully, her ears twitching at each shift of noise. He wonders what she's thinking, if she's as overwhelmed as he is. Probably. She's on an alien station, with an alien man who wants nothing to do with a forced bond. Must be terrifying for her, too. When the bartender drops off a grimy glass filled with a dark, pungent liquid, Kai downs half of it in one gulp. It burns all the way down, but it's a welcome distraction. Thalia studies the drink, then shakes her head slightly, as if the smell alone repels her. He wipes his mouth. So, your people, how did you end up in that ruin? You said they'd put you in stasis? She sighs, shoulders slumping. Yes. The temple was built ages ago, a place of power and significance to my kind. When your human expansion spread through our sector, my kin feared desecration of our sacred sites. They placed me and a few others in stasis to guard them from within, emerging only if humans trespassed. But centuries passed, and I never awakened. I assumed no humans came. Until you. Kai grimaces. So you were basically a trap. A living defense system. She looks away. Something like that. But I never asked for it. My people saw me as useful. I have certain gifts, the ability to sense and manipulate energy flows. They believed I could repel any invaders. I was told it was an honor. Her tone is laced with bitterness. He nods, understanding more than he expected to. They used you. My old bosses used me too. That's how the galaxy works, I guess. People in power exploit those who can't fight back. Her gaze flicks up to meet his, and for a moment, something like empathy passes between them. Perhaps that is why fate chose you. We share a sense of betrayal. He looks away, uncomfortable with the intimacy of that statement. Yeah, maybe. He drains the rest of his drink. All right. Let's see if we can find out who attacked us. If it's a local gang, we might be able to pay them off. If it's a bigger player, we're in trouble. She nods, rising from the booth. He follows, tossing a few credits on the table. As they step back into the bustling concourse, he notices more stares directed their way. Word travels fast on stations like this. An unusual alien is prime gossip fodder. He keeps Thalia close, scanning for any sign of threat. She's silent, but her eyes flick constantly, analyzing her surroundings. They wander through the labyrinth of corridors, eventually finding a small kiosk with a battered terminal. Kai slips a coin in, accessing the local net. He scrolls through recent flight logs, bounties, and chatter. Sure enough, there's a mention of an unidentified interceptor seen pursuing a small salvage vessel. No ID tags, no official registry. That means a pirate or a private contractor. Possibly a bounty hunter. He glances at Thalia. If they're after me, it's because I owe money to some very unpleasant people. But maybe they're after you for some reason. Do your people put out bounties on traitors or something? Her lips thin. I am no traitor, but if they discovered the bond, they might consider me compromised. My species forbids such mixing with humans. It's possible they hired someone to retrieve me. Kai exhales slowly. Great. So either I'm on the hook, or you are, or both. That means we can't just hang around here. We need to get the shuttle repaired and then get the hell out of this system. Thalia touches his arm lightly, and he feels a strange warmth at the contact. I will do whatever I can to help. But be warned, if my people truly seek me, they have advanced technology and formidable warriors. They will not relent easily. He shivers at the sensation of her hand on his sleeve. The bond, he reminds himself. This isn't normal. All right. Let's go check on the repairs. Then we'll figure out a plan. They head back toward Bay 6, weaving through the throng of station denizens. A few curious glances follow them, but no one openly confronts them. Kai keeps a wary eye out for any sign of the pursuer docking. When they arrive at the bay, they find Trip knee-deep in the shuttle's guts, cursing at a broken coil. The old mechanic looks up and waves them over. Your bird's in worse shape than I thought, he grumbles, wiping grease from his hands. Might take me a day or two to get her space-worthy. Kai grimaces. We don't have that long. Is there anything you can do to speed it up? Trip snorts. I can do miracles, but not for free. Kai glances at Thalia. She catches his look and steps forward. Perhaps I can assist again, as I did before. Trip eyes her skeptically. Yeah? You know something about thruster coils? She doesn't respond verbally. Instead, she places her hands on the open panel, closing her eyes. That faint glow returns, dancing across the machinery. Trip's jaw drops. What the hell? He watches as readouts on his portable scanner spike, the coils surging back to partial functionality. Thalia steps back, looking drained. It is not fully mended. But it should buy you time. I cannot do more without harming myself. Trip stares, then shakes his head. I've seen a lot of weird stuff in this galaxy, but that's new. All right, that should cut the repair time in half. I'll do what I can. Check back in a few hours. Kai thanks him, guiding Thalia away. She's breathing heavily, leaning on his arm for support. He curses under his breath, feeling a surge of concern he can't quite stifle. You okay? She nods weakly. I just need rest. Channeling energy is taxing. Her eyes flutter, and he realizes she might collapse if she doesn't recover soon. Come on, he mutters, putting an arm around her waist to steady her. She's taller than him by a couple of inches, but she leans into his support. He tries to ignore the strange warmth that flares in his chest. We'll find a bunk room, get you some rest. They manage to rent a small cubicle in the station's makeshift lodging area. It's barely more than a closet with a single bed, a flickering light, and a sink. But it's private. Kai helps her onto the bed, where she sinks back against the thin pillow. Her breathing slows, and the glow on her collarbones dims. He stands there awkwardly, not sure what to do. He doesn't want to watch her sleep, but he also can't leave her alone when she's clearly exhausted. Finally, he pulls up a rickety stool and sits beside the bed, arms folded over his chest. He can't believe how quickly his life turned upside down. Less than a day ago, he was alone, free to chase salvage and run from his debts. Now he's tangled in some alien bond with a woman who might cost him everything, or save him, he can't decide which. As he watches her, a strange thought occurs to him. She's beautiful, in an otherworldly way. That smooth, iridescent skin, the elegant shape of her ears, the subtle shifting of color around her eyes. He shakes his head, cursing himself. He can't afford to be attracted to her. She's trouble incarnate. But his body isn't listening to reason. Mate confirmed. The words echo again. He closes his eyes, resting his head against the wall. He doesn't believe in destiny, but it's hard to deny the pull he feels. Maybe it's just pheromones or some alien trick. Either way, he needs to stay focused. The minute the shuttle's repaired, they'll leave this station, figure out a way to break the bond or at least manage it. That's the plan. He repeats it to himself like a mantra, ignoring the knot of unease that refuses to let him rest. He wakes with a start when Thalia shifts on the bed, her eyes fluttering open. He rubs the stiffness from his neck, realizing he must have dozed off. The station's overhead lights flicker through the small window, indicating a shift in the artificial day cycle. A few hours have passed. He stands stretching. She sits up, looking more alert. You stayed? Her voice is quiet, and there's a note of surprise in it. He shrugs, trying to sound nonchalant. Didn't have anywhere else to be. He checks the time on his wrist device. Trip should be about done with the repairs soon. You feeling better? She nods. Thank you. She rises gracefully, smoothing the rumpled fabric of her outfit. We should see if your vessel is ready. And then, we must decide our next course. He hesitates, looking away. Yeah. Let's go. He opens the door, leading her back into the station's corridors. They pass the same crowds of roughnecks and traders, though the crowd has thinned slightly, indicating a shift in traffic. No one seems to be following them. Kai hopes it stays that way. When they reach Base 6, they find Trip closing up the panel on the shuttle. All done, Kai. That coil is patched. Should hold together for a few jumps, at least. He smirks. I'd say you owe me big this time. Kai forces a grin. I owe you every time. You'll get your credits. Thanks. He glances at Thalia. Ready to go? She nods, though he notices a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. She's probably as unsure as he is about what comes next. They board the shuttle, run through a quick systems check, and power up the engines. The hum is steadier now, less rattling. Kai breathes a small sigh of relief. At least they're not about to explode. He requests clearance to depart, which the station grants with minimal fuss. No sign of the attackers so far. Maybe they gave up, or maybe they're waiting outside. Kai doesn't let his guard down as he eases the shuttle out of the bay. Thalia stands beside him, one hand on the co-pilot's seat for balance. She's tense, her ears angled forward. The star-dappled void greets them, silent and vast. Kai checks the scanners, half expecting the hostile blip to reappear. But the scope is clear. For now. Let's put some distance between us and this place, he murmurs, punching in coordinates for a nearby jump gate. If they can slip through to another sector, they might gain some breathing room. Thalia exhales softly. Your world is so large yet so hostile. I have never traveled so far from my temple. He gives her a sidelong glance. Get used to it. The galaxy's a rough place. He adjusts the autopilot. You said your people might be looking for you. Any idea where they'd come from? She shakes her head. Our homeworld is deep in a region forbidden to humans. I doubt they would venture here lightly. If they do, it means they are determined. He grimaces. Great. So either we run forever, or we try to negotiate. Neither option sounds appealing. He can't help noticing how her presence fills the cockpit with a subtle tension. Despite everything, he's keenly aware of how close she stands, the gentle rise and fall of her chest. He tries to shake it off. They're not out of danger yet. The jump gate looms ahead, a massive ring structure pulsating with swirling energy. He hails the gate authority, pays the toll, and aligns the shuttle for transit. The gate's energy field crackles, enveloping them in a blinding flash. For a moment, the ship shudders, then the stars vanish, replaced by the swirling kaleidoscope of jump space. Thalia gasps, bracing herself against the console. What is this? Jump travel, Kai says. Shortcut through higher dimensional space. Hold on, it can be disorienting. He watches her reaction. She seems both fascinated and a little frightened. He remembers his first jump, how it felt like the universe was folding in on itself. She closes her eyes, steadying her breathing. I feel pulled apart, yet still whole. It'll pass, he assures her, ignoring the pang of sympathy in his chest. He tries to focus on the instruments. Jump space is notoriously tricky. The shuttle rattles as the swirling colors intensify, then with a final lurch, they burst back into normal space. A new star field spreads out before them, the sensor readings adjusting to their new location. They've arrived in a less traveled sector, a region dotted with asteroid clusters and a few small outposts. Kai exhales. All right, we're clear for now. He sets a course for a quiet corner of the system. They need time to think, to plan. Maybe find a remote place to land and figure out their next move. Thalia relaxes slightly, her grip on the console easing. That was extraordinary. He can't help a slight smile. You get used to it. Welcome to the rest of the galaxy. Then his expression darkens. So about this bond. If we're going to keep traveling together, we need some ground rules. She lifts her chin. Speak them. He takes a deep breath. No more surprise touches or weird energy stuff without warning me first. And don't go telling people I'm your mate. That'll draw attention we don't need. She tilts her head. I will comply with your customs. But you must also respect my condition. If the bond's progression is neglected, I may weaken further. I do not wish to die. He rubs his temples. Right. I get it. We'll figure something out. He hates how uncertain he sounds. For now, let's find a place to set down, get supplies, and talk this through. Maybe we can research a way to break the bond or something. She nods, though her expression betrays doubt. My people's lore states the bond is eternal, but perhaps human technology offers alternatives. Her tone is hesitant, as if she doesn't really believe it. He sighs. We'll see. I'm not exactly an expert on alien biology, but there's got to be someone out there who can help. As he guides the shuttle toward a distant asteroid belt, he wonders if he's chasing a false hope. Part of him questions whether he truly wants to break the bond. The thought startles him. He shoves it aside. No time for confusion. He has to stay in control. She remains silent, gazing at the stars through the cockpit window. In that quiet moment, Kai can't help recalling how she looked in the temple, so still and serene, like a work of art. He remembers how she whispered, "Mate confirmed," with such certainty. It felt like destiny had collided with him head-on, appending everything he knew. He doesn't believe in fate, but the memory stirs something in his chest, something he can't name. He focuses on the controls, determined to keep his thoughts in check. The next few hours pass in relative silence, broken only by the hum of the shuttle's systems and the distant crackle of cosmic static. Thalia rests in the co-pilot seat, occasionally asking questions about the readouts or the nature of the stars they pass. He answers tersely, still guarded. Eventually, they approach a large asteroid with a partially terraformed surface, ringed by a scattering of makeshift habitats. It's not on any official map, but Kai's heard rumors of smugglers using it as a hideout. He figures it's a good place to lay low for a while. He maneuvers the shuttle into a hidden cave entrance, scanning for life signs. A few, but none too close. Perfect. He sets the shuttle down on a patch of flat rock. The engines power down with a weary groan. Thalia unbuckles, standing up to peer out the viewport at the dimly lit cavern. Is this place safe? He shrugs. Safe enough. Smugglers use it, but if we keep our heads down, no one should bother us. We can stay here for a bit, see if we can find any leads on how to fix our little problem. She turns to him, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Thank you, Kai. You could have abandoned me at the station. But you did not. He scowls, turning away to open the hatch. Don't read too much into it. I'm not a saint. I just don't like leaving debts unpaid, and you did help me back there. The truth is more complicated, but he's not ready to admit that. She follows him down the ramp, stepping onto the rocky surface. The air in the cavern is thin but breathable, thanks to some half-functioning atmosphere processors. She shivers slightly in the cool, damp air. He leads her deeper into the cave, flashlight cutting through the gloom. They find a small nook tucked away behind a rock formation. It's cramped, but it'll do. He sets down his pack, rummaging for supplies. We've got some rations, a thermal blanket, a few tools. Enough to survive for a while. He glances at her. We can seal the shuttle and use it for shelter, but let's keep it powered down to avoid detection. She nods, taking in their surroundings. This is so different from the temple. So primitive. He huffs a laugh. Yeah, well, welcome to my world. He slumps against the shuttle's hull, exhaling. Now we wait and hope nobody finds us. I'll try to get a signal from the local net, see if I can dig up any info on your species or some method to break the bond. She sits beside him, her elongated ears flicking as she studies him. Why do you hate the idea of our bond so much? He stiffens. I don't hate it. I never asked for this. I don't like being tied to anyone. And you're not even human. He struggles to find the words. It's complicated. She looks away. Yes. It is. I also never asked for this. But here we are. He opens his mouth to respond, but a sudden wave of dizziness washes over him. He presses a hand to his forehead. What the? His vision blurs for a moment. Then it passes, leaving him with a lingering headache. Thalier's gaze sharpens with concern. Are you unwell? He shakes his head, trying to clear the fuzziness. I'm fine. Just tired. Too many jumps, not enough sleep. She narrows her eyes. I can sense something in you. A flicker of the bond's energy. You may be feeling the first effects. He grits his teeth. Don't start with that. But he can't deny the strange heaviness in his chest, the tingling under his skin. He dismisses it as stress, ignoring the uneasy voice in his mind that suggests otherwise. She rises, stepping close. Her presence is overwhelming, her scent a mix of ozone and something floral. He forces himself to remain still as she lifts a hand to his forehead. You are warmer than before, she says softly. He knocks her hand away. Stop. I said I'm fine. She steps back, lips pressed together. Very well. I will not force you. But be warned, if you resist too strongly, the bond's backlash may worsen. He runs a hand through his hair, frustration boiling. So what do you want me to do, huh? Just give in? Let some alien magic bind us forever? He can't keep the anger from his voice. Part of him knows it's misplaced, she's just as trapped as he is, but he can't help lashing out. She stands tall, meeting his glare with a calm intensity. I do not want to trap you. I want to survive. If there is another way, I will embrace it. But if not, then yes, I would have you accept me. Accept us. He clenches his fists, heart pounding. The tension between them is almost palpable, a crackling energy in the stale air. He hates how part of him is drawn to her, how the sight of her luminous skin and the sound of her voice sets his nerves aflame. He hates that she's telling the truth, that there might be no way out. Without warning, another wave of dizziness hits him. He staggers, and she catches his arm, steadying him. Her touch sends a jolt through his body, like static electricity. He inhales sharply, eyes meeting hers. In that moment, the cavern around them fades to a blur, and all he can see is her face, so close to his. Her eyes glow with concern and something else, desire maybe. Or need. He wants to pull away, to snap at her to let go. But his body betrays him, leaning closer instead. He can feel her breath against his cheek, warm and steady. The bond, he thinks, half delirious. This is what it does. It pulls us together. His heart thunders in his chest. She whispers, Kai. He clenches his jaw, forcing himself to step back, nearly stumbling in the process. I can't, he mutters, turning away. He won't let this alien biology override his free will. Not like this. I need air. Which is absurd, because they're on an asteroid with a thin atmosphere. But he just needs space from her, from this suffocating feeling that he's losing control. She doesn't try to stop him. She stands there, watching him with a mixture of sadness and understanding. He storms away, deeper into the cavern, ignoring the twinge in his chest that feels suspiciously like regret. He finds a ledge overlooking a dark crevasse and sits, staring into the void. The quiet hum of the station is replaced by the faint hiss of wind from the terraforming vents. He closes his eyes, willing his heartbeat to slow. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. He's not sure. He thinks about his life, his time in the military, the debts he racked up, the missions that went wrong, the people he lost. He never let himself get close to anyone after that. Love was a distraction, a weakness. He told himself that enough times to believe it. Now an alien bond threatens to unravel all his carefully constructed walls. And it terrifies him. Eventually, he hears soft footsteps behind him. He tenses, expecting Thalia, but the voice that speaks is gruff and male. You Kai? He spins around, hand on his pistol. A tall figure in a hooded cloak stands a few meters away, face hidden. Who wants to know? Kai growls. The figure chuckles darkly. A friend of a friend. Heard you might be in the market for certain information. He gestures with a gloved hand. Information about alien bonds. Specifically how to break them. Kai's heart skips a beat. He glances around, seeing no one else. Who told you that? The stranger shrugs. Word travels in these parts. You've got a unique traveling companion. Folks talk. Lucky for you, I happen to have access to some old archives. Might be something in there about your predicament. Kai's suspicion flares. This is too convenient. What's the price? The stranger smiles, though Kai can't see his face. A small favor. I need transport off this rock, and a guarantee of your cooperation in future ventures. Nothing too complicated. Kai eyes him warily. He's in no position to negotiate, but this feels like a trap. Still, the lure of a solution to the bond is too strong to ignore. All right, he says slowly. Show me what you've got. The stranger nods, stepping forward. Bring your companion. She'll want to see this too. Kai's gut twists. Thalia? He left her behind in a swirl of anger and confusion. He hesitates, unsure if he can trust this cloaked figure. But if there's a chance. Fine, he says. Stay here. I'll be back with her. The stranger inclines his head, stepping back into the shadows. Kai turns, heart pounding, and heads back toward the shuttle. He can't shake the feeling that he's walking into a trap, but he doesn't have a better lead. If there's any chance of breaking the bond, he has to take it. He finds Thalia near the shuttle, seated on a rock, her expression pensive. She stands when she sees him, a flicker of relief crossing her face. "Are you all right?" He nods curtly, avoiding her gaze. "I found someone who says they can help us. We need to go now." She blinks, studying his tense posture. "You trust this person?" "No," he admits. "But it's the only lead we've got. Come on." He gestures for her to follow. She falls into step behind him, silent but clearly curious. They retrace his path to the ledge, where the cloaked figure waits, arms folded. The figure inclines his head in greeting to Thalia. "So you are the bonded one. Fascinating." He reaches into his cloak and withdraws a small data chip. This contains references to an ancient practice known as the severance rite, rumored to break the bond between your species and another. Thalia's eyes widen. "Such a thing, it is said to be impossible." The stranger chuckles. "Impossible is a strong word. Let's just say it's difficult. Dangerous even. But not impossible. With the right components and conditions, you can sever the bond." Kai glances at Thalia, who looks torn. Part of her wants to believe it, part of her fears it. He clears his throat. "What do you want in exchange?" The stranger hands over the data chip. "Take me with you when you leave this place. And if I ever call in a favor, you answer. That's all." Kai narrows his eyes. "What's your name?" "Call me Sarin," the figure replies. "Now, do we have a deal?" Kai looks at Thalia. She closes her eyes briefly, then nods. He turns back to Sarin. "Deal. But if this is a trick, I'll make you regret it." Sarin chuckles again, a low, humorless sound. "Understood." He steps away from the ledge. "Now, shall we depart? I assume your shuttle is operational." Kai nods. "We'll head back to the ship. But I want to see what's on that chip before we jump anywhere else." Sarin shrugs. "Fair enough." They walk back to the shuttle in tense silence, the data chip feeling like a burning coal in Kai's hand. Thalia's expression is distant, as if lost in thought. He wonders if she's afraid that severing the bond will kill her. Or maybe she's worried about losing the one connection she has. He can't read her emotions clearly, and that frustrates him more than he wants to admit. Once aboard, they seal the hatch, and Kai slots the data chip into a console. A flurry of alien script scrolls across the screen, accompanied by cryptic diagrams. Thalia leans in, eyes scanning the text. "This language is close to one of our ancient dialects," she murmurs. "I can understand some of it." Sarin stands in the corner, hood still up. Kai doesn't like that he won't show his face, but now's not the time to push. "So what does it say?" he asks. Thalia translates haltingly. "It speaks of a ceremony, performed under specific astral alignments. Certain artifacts are needed. A conduit of energy to break the bond's flow. It is risky. The text warns that if the ceremony fails, the bonded pair may die." Kai swallows hard. "And if it succeeds?" She closes her eyes. "Then the bond is severed, and each party is freed from the other's influence." He exhales slowly. "This is it. A way out. Where do we get these artifacts?" Thalia scans further. "They are scattered across various hidden temples. One is on a planet called Zelith Prime. Another on an ocean world named Dorith. We would need to gather them, then find a place with the right celestial conditions to perform the rite." Kai shoots Sarin a glance. "You've been busy. How'd you get this info?" Sarin shrugs. "Let's just say I have connections. Now, do we have a plan?" Kai exchanges a look with Thalia. She seems uncertain, but he can see the faint glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Yeah," he says. "We gather the artifacts, do this rite, and break the bond. Then we go our separate ways." Thalia doesn't respond immediately. She looks down, hands clasped. Finally, she whispers, "Yes. If that is what must be done." Saren's voice is cool. Then let us depart. The path to freedom awaits. He crosses his arms. I'll remain here until we jump. Kai motions Thalia toward the cockpit, leaving Saren behind in the cargo hold. Once they're alone, he turns to her. You okay with this? She hesitates, biting her lip. It is not how I imagined my bond would end. But if you truly do not wish it, I cannot force you. My life is in your hands, Kai. He runs a hand over his face, torn by conflicting emotions. Let's just see this through. I can't be what you want me to be. She nods, stepping into the co-pilot's seat. He settles into the pilot's chair, powering up the engines. The thrusters rumble to life, and he sets a course for Zelith Prime, the first stop on their quest for the Severance Rite. His heart feels heavy, but he tells himself this is the right choice. He has to break free before the bond consumes them both. As the shuttle lifts off from the asteroid's cavernous hideout, he glances at Thalia one last time. She stares straight ahead, her expression unreadable, a silent tension hanging in the air between them. Neither speaks as they angle into space, preparing for another jump. The data chip's instructions flicker on the console screen, a grim reminder of what they must do. Kai steels himself. This is for the best, he thinks, ignoring the uneasy twist in his gut. The bond was an accident. A mistake. Soon it'll be undone, and they can both move on. That's what he wants. That's what he's always wanted, right? In the hush of the cockpit, Thalia's soft sigh seems to echo his doubts. But there's no turning back now. Kai grips the controls, guiding the shuttle into the swirling maw of the jump gate leading to Zelith Prime. Saren stands behind them, silent as a wraith. The coordinates lock in, and a surge of energy envelopes the vessel. Thalia closes her eyes, bracing for the disorienting shift into jump space. Kai's jaw sets, tension rolling through him. He can't shake the sense that each jump takes them further down a path of no return. They emerge above a swirling turquoise world veined with emerald continents. Zelith Prime glows in the darkness, dotted with floating spires that might be cities. The sensor array chirps with new data, scanning for signs of the artifact they need. According to the ancient text, a temple dedicated to the old gods of Thalia's people lies in the southern hemisphere, hidden within a dense jungle. Kai angles the shuttle into the atmosphere, turbulence rattling the hull. Thalia stares at the planet's surface, her ears twitching. I sense something, old. Powerful. She glances at Kai. We must be cautious. My people left guardians in places like this. Saren remains behind them, silent. Kai doesn't trust him, but for now, they have a common goal. We'll set down near the temple and go on foot, he says, guiding the shuttle through a thick layer of clouds. A humid, vibrant landscape appears below, towering trees with glowing leaves, winding rivers that reflect the sky like mirrors, and occasional ruins peeking through the foliage. They find a clearing near a crumbling stone structure. Kai eases the shuttle down, engines whining as they power off. The canopy overhead filters the sunlight, casting dappled shadows across the hull. When the ramp lowers, hot, humid air rushes in, carrying the sense of exotic flora and damp earth. Thalia inhales sharply, her eyes lighting up with recognition. This world, it feels akin to my home. Kai shoulders a blaster, stepping onto the soft ground. The air is alive with buzzing insects and distant bird calls. He scans the treeline, wary of predators or hidden threats. Saren steps out last, cloak rustling. His face remains hidden, though he lifts his head to survey the ancient ruins. Impressive, he murmurs. Let's find that temple. They move through the jungle, guided by the data from the chip and Thalia's intuition. Vines and moss cover ancient pathways, and the remains of stone arches loom overhead. Statues with elongated features, similar to Thalia's, stand sentinel, their eyes blank. Kai wonders if these were once her ancestors. She walks with reverence, occasionally reaching out to touch the carvings. He senses her sadness, though she says nothing. After an hour of navigating dense foliage and hidden streams, they arrive at a colossal temple half buried in the earth. A grand entrance yawns open, lined with columns carved in the likeness of aquatic creatures. Thalia hesitates at the threshold, as if listening for something. "There is a presence here," she whispers. "We must tread carefully." Kai checks his blaster's charge. "Stay behind me," he mutters. Sarin remains silent, though he seems oddly calm. They step into the temple, the interior illuminated by beams of sunlight that pierce through collapsed sections of the ceiling. The air is thick with the scent of damp stone and ancient secrets. A grand chamber opens before them, dominated by a central altar carved from obsidian. Strange symbols glow faintly along the walls, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Thalier's eyes widen. "This is a place of great power. The artifact should be here." They approach the altar cautiously. Sarin hangs back, letting them take the lead. Kai feels a prickling at the back of his neck, a sense of being watched. "Anyone else getting the feeling we're not alone?" he mutters. As if in answer, a low growl echoes through the chamber. A massive creature emerges from the shadows, its skin covered in bioluminescent patterns similar to Thalier's. It stands on 4 powerful legs, each tipped with curved claws. Its head is crowned by a crest of spines, and its eyes burn with feral intelligence. Thalia gasps, stepping back. "It is a guardian beast," she breathes. "My people sometimes left them to protect sacred sites. It will not let us pass easily." Kai raises his blaster, but Thalia grabs his arm. "No. You cannot simply kill it. This creature is tied to the temple's energy. We must find another way." The guardian snarls, baring rows of sharp teeth. It prowls closer, each step causing the floor to tremble. Kai's heart pounds. He knows they're in trouble. Sarin remains by the entrance, not offering any help. Kai wonders if this is part of the deal. Let them do the dirty work while he watches. Thalia steps forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Stay back," Kai hisses, but she ignores him. She murmurs something in her native tongue, a series of melodic clicks and tones. The creature halts, tilting its massive head as if listening. The patterns on its skin pulse faster, responding to her voice. She continues speaking, her tones soothing yet insistent. The beast growls, but it doesn't lunge. Slowly it lowers its head, regarding her with cautious curiosity. Kai holds his breath, ready to fire if it attacks. But then Thalia places a trembling hand on the creature's snout, and it exhales a warm gust of air, closing its eyes. She whispers a few more words, then steps back. The guardian rumbles deep in its chest, turning its gaze on Kai. For a terrifying moment, he thinks it's going to charge. But instead, it steps aside, clearing a path to the altar. Kai releases a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Thalier's shoulders sag with relief. "Impressive," Sarin says from the shadows. "Your bond with this place is strong." Thalia doesn't reply. She approaches the altar, and Kai follows, keeping a wary eye on the guardian. The altar's surface is etched with swirling patterns that glow faintly. At the center rests a small, crystalline orb that shimmers with rainbow hues. Thalia touches it gently, and a surge of light radiates through the room. "This must be one of the artifacts," she says, voice reverent. She lifts the orb carefully, cradling it in her hands. "It resonates with my energy." Kai eyes it warily. "That's what we came for, right?" She nods. "Yes. According to the text, we need 2 more pieces. But this is the first step." She turns to Kai, her expression solemn. "The bond severance begins here." He swallows, unable to ignore the pang in his chest. "Then let's get out of here before something else decides to eat us." They retreat from the altar, the guardian watching them with glowing eyes. As they pass, it emits a low rumble that sounds almost mournful. Thalia bows her head in respect, and the creature retreats into the shadows once more. Sarin follows them out, silent as ever. Back in the jungle, the sunlight feels harsh after the temple's dim interior. They trek back to the shuttle without incident, though the orb's presence seems to hum in Kai's ears. Once aboard, he seals the hatch and turns to Sarin. "All right, we got the first piece. Next is Dorith, right?" Sarin inclines his head. Yes. An ocean world. The second artifact lies in a submerged shrine. Should be interesting. Kai sets a course, and the shuttle lifts off. Thalia holds the orb in her lap, gazing at it with a mixture of longing and sadness. He can't read her thoughts, but he suspects she's torn between hope and dread. He tries not to dwell on it. He's made his choice. They leave Zelith Prime behind, entering jump space once more. During the journey, Thalia remains withdrawn, occasionally glancing at Kai as if wanting to speak. He avoids her gaze, focusing on the controls. Saren lurks in the cargo hold, reviewing the data chip. The tension on the shuttle is thick enough to cut with a knife. They emerge over Dorith, a brilliant sapphire sphere dotted with tiny islands. Clouds swirl over vast oceans, reflecting sunlight in dazzling patterns. Kai scans for the shrine's coordinates. Looks like it's deep underwater, near the southern pole. We'll have to land on one of the floating platforms and dive. Thalia nods. I can assist. My physiology allows me to handle underwater pressure more easily than humans. Saren steps into the cockpit. Drop the relic, or I swear I'll shoot. Kai's voice trembles with adrenaline as he crouches behind a crumbling archway in a long-forgotten ruin. Dust whirls in the dim light of a dead moon as he fixes his plasma pistol on the figure before him, a figure he assumed was nothing more than an ancient statue. But then, as if stirred by fate itself, the figure's eyes snap open, luminous and shifting from violet to cyan, and in that heartbeat, she winks and whispers. Mate confirmed. Who are you? He demands, voice low and ragged, the charged words slicing through the tense air. The alien girl stands with a serene yet unsettling grace, her delicate, iridescent skin catching every stray beam of his flickering flashlight. I do not need your weapon, she replies evenly, though there's a subtle, unspoken intensity in her tone. Her head tilts as she studies him, this man who had unwittingly crossed a line that bridged two worlds. You spoke harsh words, yet your essence sings a familiar song. She murmurs softly, her voice imbued with a resonance that both soothes and alarms him. Kai's mind reels. Just moments ago, he had been planning to pocket what he believed was a priceless relic. Now he faces a living enigma who declares their fates intertwined with a single, fateful touch. I'm nobody's mate. He spits out, anger and disbelief tangling in his voice as he edges back, his pistol still raised. But the creature, Thalia, as she will later reveal her name to him, is unyielding. Your touch awakened me, and now my body recognizes you as my mate. We are bound, whether you accept it or not, she states, the phrase hanging in the air like an incantation. The temple around them shudders as a distant rumble signals impending collapse. Step aside, or come with me, decide quickly, Kai commands, urgency lending an edge to every syllable. Thalia's eyes flash with conflicting emotions, a mixture of defiance and resigned destiny. When the structure groans and crumbles behind them, she hesitates no longer, stepping forward to match his pace as they scramble through twisting corridors and shattered remnants of ancient stone. They burst into the open air just as the temple caves in with a deafening roar, a maelstrom of dust and debris marking the end of one era and the beginning of a chaotic partnership. In the cramped interior of Kai's battered salvage shuttle, a vessel he'd won through equal parts luck and necessity, the duo hurries to safety. The controls flicker uncertainly as Kai wrestles with the thrusters, his mind oscillating between the shock of their fated encounter and the pragmatic need to survive. Strap in, he barks, handing Thalia a harness with an urgency that borders on desperation. Her slender fingers work quickly, and as the shuttle lurches upward, the memory of that singular, inexplicable moment, her wink, her whispered claim, reverberates through him like a ghost of fate. Their escape is punctuated by chaos. A pursuing vessel, unseen but ominous, forces Kai to execute desperate maneuvers. Amid the rattling of metal and the echoing blasts of hostile fire, Thalia's presence proves unexpectedly instrumental. With a delicate touch to the malfunctioning control panel, she channels a faint, ethereal energy that stabilizes the failing systems. The assailants' shots miss as Kai's newly bolstered weapons system roars to life under her mysterious influence. Their combined defiance repels the threat, buying them a narrow margin of safety as they break free into orbit above the shattered moon. Within the cramped confines of an orbital outpost, a rough haven of scavengers, mercenaries, and lost souls, Kai and Thalia navigate a fragile truce with local authorities. Accusations and misunderstandings fly as the outpost's guards regard Thalia with wary eyes, unable to comprehend the living embodiment of an ancient guardian. Despite harsh words and tense interrogations, the duo finds solace in a brief respite amid the station's dingy corridors and smoke-filled cantinas. In a silent, shared moment, as Kai nurses a bitter drink and Thalia tends to her subtle wounds, the gravity of their predicament sets in. An alien mating bond, inexplicably triggered by a simple touch, now ties their fates together in a union neither desired yet both must navigate. Later, in the solitude of a cramped lodging room, Thalia's luminous eyes fill with sorrow as she confesses that her people, the keepers of ancient rites, placed her in stasis to guard their sacred temple. When humans invaded their realms, her awakening was meant to be a last resort, a dire signal to reclaim what was lost. Instead, fate intervened, binding her to a man who sees life only as a series of debts and dangerous runs. "I do not wish to burden you with this fate," she whispers as Kai paces, anger and confusion warring with a reluctant spark of something more tender. His only response is a bitter promise. "We'll figure this out, once we survive." The fragile calm is shattered by the arrival of a hooded stranger, a shadowy figure known only as Saren, who offers a tantalizing solution. A forbidden ritual called the Severance Rite, one that could break the inexplicable bond. Saren's proposition is as dangerous as it is alluring. Gather scattered artifacts from lost temples on distant worlds, perform the rite under rare celestial conditions, and be free. But the price is steep, a favor owed, and an uncertain path fraught with peril. Kai, whose instinct is to run from all attachments, finds himself torn between his instinct to resist and a burgeoning, inexplicable desire to resolve this cosmic mistake. Their journey spirals into a relentless quest across the galaxy. First, they set course for Zelith Prime, a vibrant, chaotic world whose ancient ruins whisper secrets of lost civilizations. In a jungle filled with bioluminescent flora and crumbling statues echoing the long-forgotten visages of Thalia's ancestors, they uncover a temple guarded by a colossal beast. The Guardian, a creature as ancient as the stones themselves, responds to Thalia's unspoken language, parting to reveal a crystalline orb that pulses with otherworldly energy. This orb, the first of 3 artifacts needed for the Severance Rite, hums in Thalia's delicate hands, a symbol of hope and despair intertwined. The discovery at Zelith Prime is only the beginning. As they press onward, their path takes them to Dorith, a vast ocean world where the second artifact lies hidden in a submerged shrine. Here, Thalia's innate affinity for water gives her an edge, enabling her to navigate treacherous underwater ruins while Kai, ever the reluctant hero, fumbles with makeshift diving gear. The pressures of the deep mirror the mounting strain in their relationship, a volatile mix of primal attraction, cultural misunderstanding, and the relentless pace of survival. Each plunge into the abyss brings them closer together, their conflict and desire coalescing in moments of electric tension beneath the waves. Emerging from the watery depths, they confront not only the artifact but also the raw, undeniable chemistry that simmers between them. Kai, who has long prided himself on his emotional detachment, finds his guarded exterior slowly dissolving as Thalia's presence becomes impossible to ignore. Her every touch, every glance stokes a fire within him that he cannot fully comprehend, much less control. Yet even as the pull of attraction grows, so too does the danger. The ancient texts warn that if the bond remains unfulfilled, if its full potential is not realized, the physical and mental backlash could be fatal for both. Haunted by the specter of impending doom, the pair face relentless external threats. Pursuers from Kai's past, merciless bounty hunters, and even the vengeful remnants of Thalia's own people close in as they traverse hostile territories. Each confrontation pushes them to the brink, forcing moments of reluctant intimacy amid violent skirmishes and desperate escapes. In the heat of battle, a misinterpreted caress becomes the catalyst for an explosive, desperate mating ritual, a tumultuous, almost animalistic act that blurs the lines between survival and surrender. In that chaotic, fevered moment, the bond surges to its zenith, leaving them both raw and exposed, and irrevocably changed. Amid the maelstrom of action, betrayal, and fleeting tenderness, a quiet moment of vulnerability finally emerges. In the seclusion of a hidden outpost on a barren asteroid, as distant explosions echo through space, Kai and Thalia find themselves alone with their fractured truths. Here, stripped of the adrenaline and fury that had defined their journey, they share whispered confessions about loss, hope, and the scars that have shaped them. Kai, whose life had been a series of hard-edged survival instincts, begins to see in Thalia not an alien burden, but a kindred spirit whose own heart bears the weight of exile and expectation. In her eyes he finds a mirror of his own loneliness, a deep, aching desire for something genuine, something that transcends the ruthless calculus of his past. With the final test looming, a confrontation with the full might of Thalia's kin, who have now tracked her down in their relentless pursuit, the stakes reach their zenith. In a climactic battle that blends physical fury with the raw intensity of emotional release, Kai makes a desperate sacrifice, risking everything to shield Thalia from the onslaught. The ensuing chaos is as brutal as it is transformative, a maelstrom of energy and emotion that forces them to confront the very essence of their bond. In the heat of combat, with explosions shattering the silence of space, their mutual defiance merges with tender vulnerability. Every blow, every near miss, is a testament to the inevitability of their connection, a collision of souls that neither can deny. In the final moments, as the dust of conflict settles and the scars of battle mark their battered bodies, the severance rite is performed under a rare astral alignment. The ancient artifacts, collected at great peril from worlds both lush and desolate, resonate with the cosmic energies swirling around them. The ritual is messy, painful, and maddeningly beautiful. In a surge of light and raw emotion, the unnatural bond that had ensnared them for so long is severed with a final, echoing whisper. Kai and Thalia, both scarred and transformed, stand together amid the ruins of their shared past, no longer bound by fate or biology but free to choose their own paths. As the light fades, so too does the intensity of their tumultuous journey. Kai, whose cynicism was once as impenetrable as armor, now gazes at Thalia with a mixture of relief and quiet wonder. Thalia, her eyes no longer aglow with the desperate luminescence of an enforced bond, meets his with soft acceptance. The unspoken promise of what might have been, and what could still be, lingers in the silence. In that final, tender moment, the chaos that once defined their union gives way to a bittersweet peace. They have survived the relentless storm of conflict, cultural clash, and the very nature of love itself. Without fanfare or lingering doubt, they step away from the battlefield. Their separate paths now lie open, defined not by the accident of fate, but by the choices they make in its aftermath. Kai turns his back on the life he once knew, accepting that even in a universe filled with chaos, moments of connection can be as transformative as they are unexpected. Thalia walks beside him, no longer an unwilling participant in a bond she never chose, but a woman who has found her own strength. In the quiet after the storm, as distant stars shimmer in the endless void, they share one final look, a look that speaks of loss, of hope, and of a future unburdened by the weight of destiny. The echo of that first charged moment, the wink and whispered, "Mate confirmed," lingers like a half-remembered dream, a testament to the fierce, chaotic love that changed them both forever.